welcome to this week's edition of Twin Peaks Unwrapped. I'm your host, Bryon Kozowski, and beside me is...
Ben Durant. Hey, Bryon, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic, but at the same time, I'm kind of sad.
We're changing this up. Yeah, what are you? You started the show?
I wanted to start the show, but I'm sad because this is our second to last episode, so it's kind of melancholy here. I got emotions. I got mixed emotions. This is a very exciting episode for us. This is the big get.
This is the get that made me realize, yeah, I think we could really put a book together with this. You know, like when we did our Twin Peaks Unwrapped the book, it was once we locked in Kyle MacLachlan interview. This is 2019. We were able to get this interview, and it's so special. It means so much. I'm so excited that we can now share this with everyone.
And without further ado, here is Kyle MacLachlan.
Well, thank you for your time.
Of course. Thanks for your interest. I know you guys are passionate about Twin Peaks, so that's great.
Yeah, we really are. So I'm going to get started with, David Lynch has said you were born to play Dale Cooper. Do you think you were born to play him?
Absolutely. Who am I to question the wisdom of David Lynch?
Yes.
Absolutely born to play him. Yeah, he was, I slipped into that black suit pretty easily.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just you as a person, because, you just have, it seemed like you have the humor and the charm that you naturally have to fit that character.
So much of that was written in the script, and I just kind of took that and expanded it and made it my own. And, we sort of found it together, David and I, really. I mean, he had certain mannerisms. And I'm speaking now of the first incarnation that I adopted as Dale Cooper. Some of the hand clasping in front of the body, some of the intonation and delivery, and we both are fairly enthusiastic people, so that wasn't too difficult. And but at the same time, it was really important that he was quirky, yes, but he was also there, and there was a serious side to him as well, which it was important to bring out from time to time, just to remind people that this wasn't all about sort of the crazy, wonderful world of the town of Twin Peaks.
Can you tell us the story of how David called you and then wanted to meet with you to talk about maybe coming back to Twin Peaks?
Sure. So we are pretty close, almost neighbors in Los Angeles. Well, we are neighbors, really. He's kind of down and around the corner and down the street. And so we are friends, and we hang out together when I'm in Los Angeles, and I always would bring up, sort of obliquely the idea of going back to Twin Peaks. This was during the time between the first and the second, of course. Mm. And he was always sort of cagey, and never really, wasn't really connecting. And so years go by, and then he reaches out to me and sort of says he needs to talk to me about something. And so either I knew that he had something brewing, but had no idea that it was going to be Twin Peaks. But he said he couldn't speak with me over the phone. He needed to be in person. So I said, okay. So he was going to be in New York, in a couple of days. So we made a meet place where he was staying, and I went over to see him in the hotel, and we sat down, and he just said to me, how would you feel about going back to Twin Peaks? And I said to him, David, I said I never really left Twin Peaks. Uh-huh. So there. So, and that's all he really needed to hear, was that I was back in. And then he didn't really elaborate, but said there were going to be some things that were going to be really challenging and nothing really specific. And I said, that sounds great. So off they went to write the script. And I actually, when I was back in LA, he would give me the certain hours. They weren't episodes; they were just hours. We never referred to them as episodes. Certain hours to read, to look through, just to give me a sense. And so he would hand me the script, and I would over at his house, and I would go off to a little location there, a little exterior location. I'd sit and I'd read the material, and I'd come back and hand him back the scripts, and it was very compelling and interesting and confusing and exciting and all the things that it was in the when we finally actually brought it to life. But it became clear to me really quickly that the demands on my work was going to be extreme, because of the characters, but I was also very excited to do what needed to be done, and I recognized immediately that the character of Mr. C had to be absolutely the most dangerous person you've ever come across. And as an actor, anytime you say, okay, he's the most dangerous person in the history of the world, it's a little daunting. But I said, you know what, we'll find our interpretation of that. David and I, together, we'll work together and we'll figure out what that is, what makes sense. And so, it was a process. And the character of Dougie was came also challenging, but was quicker to play and a little more fun, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I developed that with David as well. So.
We spoke with Sabrina Sutherland, and she had told us that, the first time in the casino with you acting, she didn't even recognize you, that she was stuttering. She was shocked by how well you played Dougie.
Well, I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Do you remember that? Do you remember the first time acting with Sabrina and maybe how she responded to it?
Yes, I think she was. In those situations, it's always challenging because we're all friends. We've known each other for years, and you kind of have to pretend, and you kind of so you're now. I'm now relating to her in a different way than I would relate to her, just in a day to day. And so I think for a moment it's a little bit shocking to realize that the responses from me that she's used to, whether it's facial mannerisms or language, whatever, are now different. So I think it takes everybody like a beat to sort of figure that out. That was really the case. Again, going back to Mr. C, when I was working with David and Laura Dern, we know each other very well, and having to relate to them as the character of Mr. C, where there's absolutely no humanity in there at all. That was really difficult for me because these are my good friends, and so when I had to look at them as just objects, it was very disconcerting, actually, to me.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, you've never really played such a bad guy in any of the acting movies or TV shows that I've ever seen you in. So how did you find that character? I mean, how do you prepare for such an evil character?
You start with the script and what it tells you, what it gives you, and that's always the best way. And then you have to just kind of read between the lines and figure out what the reality of that character might be and what he might feel like given his the circumstances of how long he's been in this dimension and. What kind of things, what is he like? What does he not like? Pretty simple. And then go forward to, as he's not of this world, how does he function in the world? So you start plugging in all these questions, really, and they hopefully will, give you answers. And then, it's about creating not only the interior life, but the exterior life of the guy. And that was a process that was layers of, finding the hair and finding the look of the makeup and, the lenses, the contact lenses, and then that jacket, and everything needed to be a certain way. And thankfully I had the eye of David Lynch on that as an artist and as a creative person. And then, he's got intuition, coming out of his eyeballs. So it's all, there's a feel mechanism, feel your way through it that he and I both were engaged in, and we landed, I think, in a really good place for Mr. C.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than I could even imagine. I mean, I've been a fan of Twin Peaks since the beginning, since it first came on. And, after the show ends, you think about, what could the evil Cooper be like? And you never could picture him as good as you played it. So it is a fantastic job.
Oh, thanks. That's really great. Thank you. I look back at some of the banging the head against the glass and sort of that, and we evolved him quite a bit from just that.
Really
that kind of, but then at the same time, that's the beginning. That's the first sort of inhabitant, and he's been around for 25 years. So that's going to, it's going to evolve as well. So
Sure, yeah.
Come on, baby, life is grand.
Your go to do Twin Peaks, and then there's a period of time where David says he's not going to do it. I was just wondering what's going through your mind where you're on board to do this, and then David might not do the show.
I just, this is there's the creative side of things, and then there's the business side of things,
Yeah.
and this was certainly the business side of things, and that's where David was working his way through it with all the folks at Showtime, and I just kind of trusted it and hoped that it would work out. But I also knew that if it didn't work out, it would have been for very good reasons, being that David wouldn't have had the kind of control that he wanted, and that he at this particular point in his career absolutely is entitled to. This is how he works, and so if we were going to go back and make the Twin Peaks, he was going to make it the Twin Peaks that he wanted to make. He was going to, do everything, and Showtime had to go along with his vision.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what was done. I sort of stepped back and let that unfold. I didn't think really that my contribution at that time was something that was going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So I just said, let's let them work it out and so that they're comfortable, and then hopefully it will fall in favor of David and we'll be able to go forward. And David Nevins, who was the head of Showtime at that point, was very accommodating, I think, and really wanted David to have all that he needed, and they were able to come to terms, and the rest is history. So it was all good.
It's great that David's able to make it the way he wanted to make it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That was, I think, I can imagine, and I wasn't really privy to all the ins and outs, but I imagine that was part of what he was going for.
Definitely. And so on the first day of shooting, do you remember who was the first character that you came onto set as?
Yeah, Mr. C. So we were shooting, and we did all of the locations in Seattle were filmed first. So that means the very end of the show was filmed in those first few weeks. And there was a sequence where I show up at the police station, sheriff's station there, and I'm kind of walking across, and I see Andy for the first time. And it was a bit challenging because it wasn't a contained space. It was daytime. It was in the light. And I wanted to make sure that there was still the power to him, because he was on his way was going to be there to take out Sheriff Truman and waiting for Cooper and everything. So he was about to do some serious damage. So we just picked it up right in the middle. But everybody felt pretty good about it, and we shot there for a couple of days. Yeah, so Mr. C was the first, and then I think I changed either that same day or the next day into Cooper as we come screaming into the latter part of the scene. So I was able to do both characters straight away.
Nice.
Wow.
And we on the Blu-ray they have behind footage, and it's nice to see the interaction between David and you on the set for the first time and looking at it. And it was a great scene.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's nice to have all that. There was a videographer there the whole time, and I'm sure there's days of footage. So I haven't seen that yet, but that's cool. It's cool that he was there tracking everything, because that's just part of the joy of working with David is exactly that. Is that we have such a shorthand. We've known each other for so many years. It's kind of crazy how long it's been, but you immediately slip back. It's like an old shoe.
Would you usually just play one character a day shooting, or could there be a chance where you switch between costumes and
Yeah, there was some switching going on. That was always a little challenging.
Yeah.
Not a lot, fortunately. They were able to board it in such a way that it was usually one or the other. Primarily, really, more than anything, I think it had to do with just downtime, kind of switching from one character and cleaning up, getting back into the next character. It wasn't a long time, but in this instance, time is money. So they want to make sure that there's no sort of dropped time. So it had less to do with my comfort and more to do with just saving money.
Totally. And so getting into Dougie, do you see Dougie as Cooper with amnesia?
Kind of, yeah. He's definitely, he's like a baby, obviously. And so he experiences everything in the world that he experiences this for the first time. Now I debated how much of a memory he had, but I said, no, he's got to have a memory. So once he does something, kind of like a baby, he sort of remembers and it becomes, a pattern. It's like training a dog or something, So, but he was definitely, Cooper was inside, but he just was not able to connect with him. It's just like the plug and the fuse, and it just wasn't connecting,
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, but he definitely, that was really challenging. We had years and years and years ago. It's so funny how this works because I went to training school, acting training school at the University of Washington, 3 years of acting study. And one of the exercises that I remember that we did in class is called object discovery. And the whole point of the exercise is to come upon something and you have to imagine that you have never seen it before, whether it's a fork, a book, a car, whatever, the sound.
Wow.
And you have to react to it as if you've never seen it before. So how would you approach that object? What do you do? How do you interact with it? Blah, blah, blah. So funny enough, I went back to the archives, so to speak, and I really, that was how it all worked.
Something.
One of the scenes that I love is when I'm in the backyard and my son is giving me, Sonny Jim's giving me a mitt there and I'm standing and he throws the baseball at me and I'm like a child or a dog. I don't know what that is or what's coming to me until it hits me in the head. And so the challenge, of course, was not to react at all until after the impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you basically, and obviously your tendency is to try to catch it or flinch or move. But this was not the case for Dougie. So stuff like that. Each day were neat challenges, and each day we found the way through. So it was a kind of a slow, steady pace, and did a lot of laughing, on the way through. And David was so encouraging, particularly just some of the shtick and the coffee stuff. I mean, it's meant to be funny, but absolutely with no wink and no commentary and nothing. It's funny because it's sort of sadly funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't help but laugh. And so there was a lot of that going on the set.
Nice. I want to mention to you, we were at the Twin Peaks Film Festival in Washington.
Yes.
And Sabrina was able to show us that episode.
Episode 12.
And we're in a restaurant. We're actually in
The Roadhouse.
Basically where the Roadhouse exterior was filmed. And so we're with a crowd, and when you get hit by the baseball, the whole room erupts laughing and stuff. But it was just a great moment. It kind of it was just a great scene.
It was a great experience.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's nice to hear it. What a nice event. Everyone can share that. That's very cool.
Yeah, it was special.
Yeah.
So what was it like finding out that Laura Dern was going to be Diane? She was going to be a part of this.
Oh, I was so excited. I was like, it was one of those aha moments. Like, of course, and of course she'd be perfect to play Diane. And she came in with Laura is an extraordinary actress and so intuitive as well, and has worked with David obviously over the years. And she brought in so much of that character and created her. It was really fantastic to see. She just filled it with she's so interesting, Yeah. I just, and I love working with her. She's just one of those really just very, very special people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you have such great chemistry. You have such great chemistry.
Yeah, thank you very much. We both have kind of a similar sense of humor where it gets a little bit wry at times, and she's definitely in that same style, so we have a lot of fun, and we're not above, making jokes about David at David's expense, but then, he comes right back at us. So there's definitely some edgy humor between all of us.
Yeah. Did you ever imagine Diane as a real person, or was she really a means for you to have a monologue on your own?
Well, I kind of twofold. One was really she was a great device, to be able to explain and talk about what was happening in Twin Peaks. I think the wonderful thing was the reveal of the character in that opening episode when Cooper drives up to the mountain in the first Twin Peaks, and how just what he does and how he comments. He's giving off information, but what you're really doing is you're learning about the quality of this guy through his observations, what's important to him, how he speaks, his cadence, everything that goes on. So it was a great character reveal just in that one shot, just that one drive up the mountain.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was probably, I never really connected it with a face or a life that was somewhere else. So it was just, for me, it was just kind of a device to really do my thoughts. And Diane could have been anything. Could have been a person, could have been the name of the tape recorder.
Yeah.
But I never made it specific for myself, which is actually kind of nice because I think there are so many different really open to interpretation from the audience.
Yes, I agree.
We've had ours.
Good.
Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks. It's 5 miles south of the Canadian border, 12 miles west of the state line. I've never seen so many trees in my life. As W.C. Fields would say, I'd rather be here than Philadelphia. 54 degrees on a slightly overcast day. Weatherman said rain. You get paid that kind of money for being wrong 60% of the time. You'd be working. Mileage is 79,345. Gauge is on reserve. Riding on fumes here. I got to tank up when I get into town. Remind me to tell you how much that is. Lunch was $6.31 at the Lamplighter Inn. That's on Highway 2 near Lewis Fork. That was tuna fish sandwich on whole wheat, slice of cherry pie, and a cup of coffee. Damn good food. Diane, if you ever get up this way, that cherry pie is worth a stop. Okay. Looks like I'll be meeting up with the Sheriff Harry S. Truman. Shouldn't be too hard to remember that. I'm going to be at the Calhoun Memorial Hospital. Guess we're going to go up to intensive care and take a look at that girl that crawled down the railroad tracks off the mountain. When I finish here, I'll be checking into a motel. I'm sure the sheriff will be able to recommend a clean place, reasonably priced. That's what I need. A clean place, reasonably priced. Oh, Diane, I almost forgot. Got to find out what kind of trees these are. They're really something.
You've mentioned in the LA Times about Cooper, this is season 3, that Cooper had more of a presence in the script. Can you share anything more about that?
You mean that he was more, there was, during the filming, there were moments where he had some lucidity. Primarily when he was communicating with Al Strobel, the one-armed man, when he had connected to that world. And then we shot those, and then ultimately I think David decided that wasn't part of the story that he wanted to expose. So it just didn't make it into the series. Yeah. But there were moments, yeah. I mean, there weren't a lot, but there were a couple where you did get a taste of that. But at the same time, I sort of feel like, for whatever his reasons, I think the despair that people felt and that grew over time that Cooper might not actually ever return was much more powerful. And to be honest, the reveal at the end when he does finally wake up was a moment that people, really, really responded to. So, I see that argument too. So, David and I really didn't discuss it, but yeah, that was part of it.
Yeah. And I do see Dougie as Cooper. I mean, we've already said that in some way you get the best essence of Cooper, whether he knows somebody's lying, he's good at gambling, I mean, he loves coffee. So you get the essence of Cooper throughout the whole season or series.
He's there. Yeah, he's there. He's just very muted.
Having read the whole script, do you see this sequence of events mostly staying the same in the final version of the show, or did the final version kind of show dramatically change? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, did it evolve with Lynch adding new script stuff and through the editing process? Did it change a lot?
No, not really. To be honest, I think, and I think this is true of David's work. Once he writes it, and he writes, it's not like we're shooting a draft. It's really, really refined, to David's perspective, his point of view. So we shot everything, pretty much there. Now while filming, there might have been certain things we've tried, very slight variations, but nothing that was significant enough to alter the story markedly. You know what I mean? It was all right there. Yeah.
You've done stage, you've done screen, but Twin Peaks was the first time you really had done television. What was that experience like for first realizing you're doing a week-to-week show?
Not so much different than film, to be honest. My film experiences were pretty wide at that point in time. I mean, everything from Dune. I started up from Dune, which is its own kind of beast, to a kind of a long lull before Blue Velvet, which was the second. Again, both with David. So that was the common thing. The Blue Velvet was much smaller, and I think everybody was much more comfortable and kind of understood the story. And it's there was a lot of moving parts in Dune, I guess. And then shortly after that, I did the movie called The Hidden, which was a kind of a departure, but also had some kind of actually early Dougie stages in some ways. A little bit of the object discovery with this character that was fun to explore. Yeah, exactly. And didn't quite know what how to react to this human environment. And then the Twin Peaks thing was really something that I was very excited. I tell you, I was primarily excited because the character. I liked the character, and it's not that I was having a hard time, but struggling a little bit in Los Angeles with film, and things are coming and stuff, but it's not really consistent yet. And this was finally like a character that I said, this is a great character, and I get to work with my friend David, and I said, okay, this could be fun. So I didn't even really think, TV versus film, and there still was a little bit of that stigma at that time. I think that's pretty much been shattered.
True.
Right now, and most actors that I know of that I grew up working with are very excited to work in the world of television, particularly with all the variety of content and shows that you can do. And unless you're a superhero in a superhero movie, which is, obviously fun, a lot of fun and very lucrative, there's the good ones are sort of few and far between. So this is it's really nice to be working where I'm working. And so there was no thought about it really.
Yeah. So you shoot the pilot, and then kind of after the pilot, you have the Red Room sequence where it was kind of tacked on. As an actor, you're like, okay, you're going to make it an old man. People are going to be talking backwards. I mean, what was your feelings about shooting the Red Room?
That was definitely odd. It's David, so you're going to go on to some interesting. You're going to be in some interesting environments. I thought it was pretty cool and felt very otherworldly at the time. The whole pilot and the first movie of Twin Peaks, and I say movie because it was actually built to be close-ended. We shot it as if they called it at that time a backdoor pilot, which means if it did not get picked up, then at least ABC could air it as a movie of the week. That's when I think they still had movies of the week back then. So they put an ending on it. So they closed it up. But I don't think that was ever. I mean, I don't think David's intention was to ever close it up, but he sort of had to do it. So we filmed that end sequence. That whole sequence made its way into episode 2 or 3, I think. I don't remember which one it is, where they finish it up with Frank in the basement with the candles and all that kind of stuff, which is that sort of dream sequence. But the whole Red Room stuff was, you kind of do it, and it's very strange because Mike Anderson's there, little Mike, and he's walking backwards. He was actually very proficient at talking backwards, and David. And fortunately, I didn't have to speak backwards, but everyone else did. And I was like, "What's this going to be like?" I had no idea. It seemed very strange. And then you saw it, and you were like, "Whoa, that is pretty brilliant."
Yeah.
So you don't really appreciate it until, of course, you see it and it's played backwards, and then you go like, "Wow." Pretty awesome. And they were all, and Mike in particular was pretty good at being able to make the sounds believable as words.
Yeah, it's very cool.
What was it like being directed by Mark Frost? So the season finale of the first season, Mark actually directed that episode.
Oh, well, Mark's a very super talented director as well, and has a great sense of humor, and knows how to tell a story. So I think, it's pretty much you just kind of follow the blueprint of the script. And we had a great time and had a good laugh, and he was terrific. And that was true really of all the directors. We had a really interesting mix of people directing those first 7 episodes. And you got to remember, we weren't shooting them and then airing them. We shot everything and then banked it. You know what I mean? So we had no idea of knowing they're all finished of what the reception was going to be. But we know we filmed these 7 episodes, and then we were going to see what happened. And then they came out, and of course everything exploded.
Totally.
Yeah. There's
always been a lot of talk about like the Audrey Cooper romance. I always wondered what your feelings was about that was.
It was sort of a charming, little diversion for Coop and she was obviously fascinated with him, infatuated with him. And I thought that was great. But I said to the guys, I said, this really can't continue. I said, she's in high school. And I just felt like, I know it's sort of alluring and interesting, but, this shouldn't really, we can't really make this part of it, So they resisted a little bit, but I said, I'm pretty adamant about it. So they ultimately kind of wrote around that, and it didn't end up being sort of the Audrey Cooper romance. I didn't feel it was right. For the character, for the story. So, right or wrong, those are the choices that were made at the time.
Yeah, and I was 15 at the time seeing Twin Peaks, so I was kind of like, oh, they're together. And, we're older now, and Bryon here, the co-host, was like, that's inappropriate. And we're older now, and you understand that, but I think as a kid, you don't understand.
I'm happy it didn't happen. I always it would change Cooper. It would change Cooper dramatically. I think.
Thank you. That was my argument too. I just said, he's got such a strong moral compass that to see that bend in the face of, albeit a very lovely and attractive and sexy young woman, I think we lose some Cooper there. So I was just trying to kind of that was my position too.
Yeah, totally agree.
Audrey, you're a high school girl. I'm an agent of the FBI.
So do you want me to leave or what?
What I want and what I need are two different things, Audrey. When a man joins the Bureau, he takes an oath to uphold certain values. Values that he's sworn to live by. This is wrong, Audrey. We both know it.
But don't you like me?
I like you very much. You're beautiful, intelligent, desirable. You're everything that a man wants in his life. But what you need right now, more than anything else, is a friend. Someone who'll listen.
So when did you find out who killed Laura Palmer?
Not until towards later on. They kept that secret until well into the second season, and all the signs were kind of pointing towards Leland, but no one was really sure. And then we get the script and say, yes, that's what it was, and it was it was very, very difficult to imagine that. And I don't know if Ray knew from the beginning. I kind of wager he didn't, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And because he never sort of, revealed anything, I never gave anything away, which made it even more compelling. But, but then I sort of was like, oh, the idea of this possession, and then it turned to a different thing, that he was actually released from this awful torture, was like, oh, okay, that there's something bigger out there that is doing this, that's even more dangerous and more frightening, which was a track that went into the movie, this Fire Walk with Me, and then ultimately came out in the season 3.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So your brother Craig, he played a dead body in season 2. I think he's been your stand-in. He's been involved with Fire Walk with Me. What was it like working with your brother?
He was great. He came in. He was in LA and kind of looking for something to do, and he's incredibly well organized and good with people. And I think David asked him. I'm not quite sure how he got involved, but he was a PA on the set for Twin Peaks. So he was, which is kind of the low man on the totem pole, but he took that in stride, and he's very capable. So had he just wanted to continue a career in film and that kind of side of things, he would have done very, very well. Probably would be a first AD by now, but he was doing it just more for fun. And so they thought it would be kind of kooky to have him. And at that time he had super, super long hair because he was in a band, or maybe he had just finished his work with a band. So they stuck him in the chair and made him a victim of Wyndham.
Yeah.
Wyndham Earl. He loved it. Yeah. He had a great time. He loved doing that. And, he would wrangle all the actors, trying to get them to the set on time. And he had his hardest time with Michael Onkeen, because Onkeen would finish the scene before they would turn around. He would make a beeline for his trailer and end up taking off all of the sheriff's gear, which, he had the gun and the hat and the thing. And then they'd call him back to set, and he'd come to the door and he'd be like, dressed in his T-shirt and underwear, and he'd be like, Craig would be like, Mike, Mike, we got to get back to the set, man. Come on. So somehow Craig was able to, finagle him and get him back in time. But yeah, there's lots of stories like that.
And do you have a favorite memory of working on season 3?
And I would say this to myself in the morning. I'd get up, at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, whenever I had to get up to get to work. And I would be like, I am so excited to go to work. So it was sort of like in my kitchen before I would go to work. I'd make my coffee and I'd have like a little something to eat. And I got up early enough to be able to it wasn't like a roll out of bed, fall into the car type of thing. I mean, I drove myself too, which I really like to do, just to prep. And the whole thing was like, I'm going to go work with my good friend, David. We're going to be working on something that I'm so proud of. And I'm so excited to be this character. And I feel like it's going really, really well. And I love the people involved. It was just kind of all of that was every day was like a joy.
Yeah.
In the work process. So
nice.
That was really it for me. Yeah. Every day was special.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. My pleasure, guys. It's been. Thank you for your interest and for your enthusiasm and keeping Twin Peaks alive. It's really good.
Thank you, Kyle, for that interview. That was just so cool to be able to get to talk to him. And I had pages and pages of notes and stuff to talk to him, and with all of our interviews that we've done, we have a very short period of time, or depending on what the schedule with the cast and the crew and stuff like that. So there was no way we were going to get through every question. But the smart thing is we decided to start with season 3, so we were able to at least ask kind of new questions that were that maybe hadn't been asked before.
Right, it's tough because he's heard a lot of the older stuff probably a million times. But getting that season 3 stuff was kind of cool, and to have that something special for our book. Because Kyle, there's nothing in print of Kyle talking about season 3 like our book has. I think that's really special. And man, it was surreal. It was right up there with David Duchovny. Hearing him talk to us on our phone, I can't get over it. To this day, it gives me chills that we got to talk to these folks and they wanted to talk to us, which is, I don't know, I'm blown away.
It's quite amazing. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Exactly. I'm speechless to the fact that you got. I mean, Ben, you deserve all the credit here because you are the man that you don't take no for an answer, and you will get these folks somehow, some way. The only no we've ever gotten is David Lynch. So. And
even that wasn't a no when you think about it, because he was so awesome that he did a video for our watch party on Cast, and that was something that he did a special video just for them. So to me, that was the yes, and I mean that's all I can ask for. We don't need it always to be on our show. It was still something for the community, and so to me, I think there was probably 5 people I would really from Twin Peaks I would want to talk to, whether it be Sharon Fenn and Kyle MacLachlan and Mark Frost and David Lynch, and I'm sure there was one other one. Can't even think what the 5th one is now. But those are some big people, and we really gotten to talk with all of them, or they've all contributed to this podcast in some way, and that means so much that we got that.
Right, we hit them all. We really hit them all. And Kyle, we've had our run-ins with Kyle. We met him at the Festival of Disruption. You got to shake his hand outside and tell him thank you for, entertaining us for all these years. And then you were like, Bryon, I'm going to New York. I'm going to go have dinner and wine with Kyle MacLachlan.
A week after we did this interview, and a week later, he had a wine tasting in New York. And it was dinner, and so I got to spend hours with Kyle, just hanging out, drinking, and eating great food.
So cool. So, it was like a Kyle week. You were high on Kyle MacLachlan, pretty much.
Right?
It's
pretty cool.
So cool.
Such a nice guy. I mean, it's funny because for so many years, he doesn't go to the festivals, and he at least especially when he was younger, he seemed like he was more reserved, and he wasn't as engaged with fans. I think maybe he's gotten older and maybe he's more comfortable with the fans. And now, I mean, I love that he's done things on TikTok or on social media. He's done all these videos and really engaged with the fans. And I think that's awesome. I think that's great that we're living in the right time. Get to hang out with Kyle MacLachlan.
You're absolutely right, Ben. It's totally true. And I think with the pandemic, it really helped. It kind of made actors and people kind of connect with their fans differently. And I think Kyle embraced that. Yeah. And I think that's really cool.
I also did a video for our watch parties as well. Yes. So that was cool. He played himself. He played Cooper. He came out as Cooper and just said hi to the fans. So that was, again, really nice and generous of him, that when I think we're all kind of having a difficult period in COVID, that he would record something for the fans. So that was something else.
Yeah, that was crazy. You know, it's one thing to get to interview them, but to see a personalized video, I think it's just like super special. So, yeah.
So thank you, Kyle, again. If for some reason, if you're listening to this, thank you for your being generous and giving of your time. It means so much.
Yeah, totally. Well, Ben, I guess, next week, June 28th, we'll be dropping our final episode. I'm not going to even tell you really what we're going to be talking about a lot of things. You just have to tune in to hear us. But I guess I want to say thank you to everybody who's been on this journey with us, new and old. If you just discovered us, awesome, because you got a lot to listen to. And if you've been with us this entire time, thank you so much for putting up with us, with our getting names wrong, all that stuff. We're not perfect, but we always like to be entertaining, and we get a lot of great emails saying how much they love the show. So thank you so much. Also, we want to say that Twin Peaks Unwrapped, the book, now is in its second printing. It is print on demand through Amazon. We were not expecting this. It's not something we were planning on, but our publisher said, we sold out the first edition. We can do this. People still want your book. And when we announced we had sold out, there was a few folks who were like, I was sitting on it. I hadn't bought it yet. I wish I had bought it. And so to those folks, now you can buy it, and you can buy it at better shipping costs through Amazon. And it's global now. Global, any country you're in, you should be able to get yourself a copy with better shipping. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. This book can outlive us, hopefully, and people can enjoy it. Because, like I said to you, Ben, people are just discovering our show probably every month. There's new people. We have a book ad almost on every show. And the first thing I thought was, oh God, I have to take all those ads down. Because I don't want people thinking we have a book out when we don't. But now, it's all good. So you can still go to bluerosemag.com and buy it. It just redirects you. And if you have a comment, a question, or a theory about today's show, give us an email at twinpeaksunwrapped@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. Give us that 5-star review on iTunes. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play.
And next week,
we'll see you
at the curtain call.